and I didn't think anything of it. Didn't think that may be the last time I saw him.
I didn't realize that I had been basically under a coma for a month.
I'm recording.
All right, my name's Jeffrey LAMPKIN. I'm 34, and I've been riding for several years. I've always grown up wanting a dirt bike, never got one. I got my first motorcycle around the age of 21. So I've been riding 14 years. I got my motorcycle license at 18, and it just took a while to get the money saved up to buy the first bike.
Recording. I'm Shelly LAMPKIN. I'm 31 years old, and I am married to Jeff LAMPKIN. I met Jeff when I was 16. We have been together 14 years, married 10.
So what style of riding are you into?
Kind of anything with two wheels, really. But I prefer to cruise the back roads, daily riding type stuff, to and from work. And I didn't really go out, for long rides or anything like that until I got this last biter. Any way I can get my face in the wind.
Every time I was on a motorcycle was with my dad. He would take us around the block or just down the street every now and then, so I was familiar with riding. I then started dating Jeff, which he did not have a bike yet, but he did get one. We would definitely go on dates. One of my favorite memories was when we went to Lake the Pines. He picked me up. We had zero money. He probably spent all of his money on the gas in his tank. And we got a Hunt Brothers pizza at the gas station. And we went to this little gazebo. And it's like one of my most favorite memories ever. Fast forward 10 years, we had a daughter.
My second bike, we actually took it to Daytona Bike Week in 2013. Came to the conclusion that, I was having a kid. I thought it would be the more responsible thing to do to sell and get away from two wheels.
He decided that the grown-up thing to do would be to get rid of his bike, and so he did. And then 5 years later, he got another one. So it's just something that's always in his blood, and he's never gonna want to stop, and I would never keep him from what makes him happy.
And then in 2019, I decided that it's who I am, and I like to get back on two wheels.
Our daughters love to ride with Jeff. Our oldest is now 10, and our youngest is 2. I've always been a very safe rider, so I think that was instilled in Jeff as well.
I would tote my daughters around the block, around the neighborhood, just to get them comfortable with it and get them used to it, and they love doing it.
The morning of the accident, Jeff wakes up about 5 a.m. I'm still asleep. So he kissed me on the forehead like he always does, went out the door, waved on the camera, and left. And I didn't think that may be the last time I saw him. I had gotten the kids ready for school, lunches packed, and got headed out the door and got driving down the road, and I finally had time to check my phone, and I saw a random number calling me over and over and over. It was the trooper that was over Jeff's accident.
So the day of the accident, I woke up at 5 o'clock like I always did during the week. I headed out the door at 5:30 to head to work. This time I was going to ride the bike to work. The weather was great. So I hopped on and took off and was just casually cruising on my way to work. Of course, nobody's in a hurry to get to work. I ended up passing a car on 4-lane before it went down to 2-lane. And then when it went down to 2-lane, I had a deer run out in front of me. Luckily, I ended up being able to miss it, but in the process, it jumped on my handlebars.
My initial instinct was, this is probably not good. I called the number back, and he told me that Jeff was in an accident and that he was stable, but he was being transported by ambulance to the hospital. That he had not necessarily hit a deer, but a deer had jumped on his handlebars.
So he jumped on the bike with me, and I managed to keep it up. And keep in mind, I've still got this car that I just passed behind me. So they're witnessing the whole thing. And in the process of the deer jumping on the bike, it broke my front brake lever. So I couldn't grab my front brake to stop or slow down. Of course, I didn't wear my helmet that day for some reason.
Jeff's injuries were all sustained on the pavement, and the bike and the dead deer were found 20 yards past that in the ditch. The car called 911 immediately and pulled him out of the roadway before an oncoming car could run you over. They immediately started trying to give Jeff assistance and knew that it was not good.
When I went down, the initial hit was so hard that I don't really recall anything other than leaving for work that morning. So the only recollection I have of what happened is from the eyewitness statements.
I got to the hospital, and when they finally let me back to see Jeff, they had told me that he would need emergency surgery, that he had fractured his left temporal bone when he fell, and that he sustained a clavicle break. His first 4 ribs were broken. His lung had been punctured and collapsed, and he had a lacerated spleen. They told us that if he would have gone to any other hospital, he would have died. They said it they wouldn't have had some coal right then and there, he would not be here.
Tell Riley you love her. And I'll send it to her.
He needed to go to a level 1 trauma, and closest was Tyler.
So I don't really remember much of anything. I just remember when I finally came to waking up and one of the nurses came in and I asked where I was. And they informed me that I was in ICU at UT Health Hospital in Tyler. And I didn't know how long I had been out of it or anything like that. So I knew that, I'm waking up in ICU, and the next thing I remember was I was headed to work. So I knew it had to be pretty serious. I didn't realize that I had been basically under a coma for a month.
They had just brought him in. He had to go to emergency surgery immediately. He actually went to school with the trauma doctor that was on staff. So she knew him and cared for him like a brother and saved his life.
I got to know the staff on the ICU floor pretty well. Made some friends, and I still keep in touch with some of them. And as comfortable as it was for me to actually be in the hospital, I was ready to get the hell out of there.
Hey, babe, can you look at me? Jeffrey, look at me, babe.
Look at her.
Look at me.
Look at her. She's over here.
Good job.
Keep looking. There
Can you give me a thumbs up? Good job, babe.
The whole surgery lasted about 8 hours. After that, they didn't let us see him for quite some time just to make sure he was stable. When we finally did get to see him, I think it was only about 30 minutes. And then visiting hours were over. So I spent all day, not knowing, and then getting to see him for just a moment was good, but at the same time, it's like, what do I tell my kids? And my daddy's not here. At this time, people had posted on Facebook and stuff of just accidents, so my kid actually found out before I could tell her, and I think that was a little rough. As a mom, I try to shelter my kids from this cruel world, so I didn't really have that option. So throughout the day and the next week was absolutely the hardest. They said day 5 would absolutely be the turning point on if he would come through or not. Day 3 was a really big turning point because Jeff's brain was swelling so much that it was starting to push down on his spinal cord. And once you don't have anywhere else to go, they had his bone flap his skull off of this side to allow swelling that was swollen. But at that point, there's really nothing you could do. His heart was starting to stop, and you would just look at the screen and there would just be a line. And that was very gut-wrenching to feel so helpless. So
Can you move this hand? No, your hand. That hand.
Yes, I remember seeing the kids.
Do you remember Riley in her Halloween costume? She had a butterfly costume on. She would run down the halls.
I very, very vaguely remember that.
And a month in, you also got to see Hardy for the first time. The girls and I went to Build-A-Bear and built you a bear with their voices in it so that you could still hear them. Do you remember flicking it in the middle of the night and scaring the nurses? Because they wouldn't know why a little kid was talking.
Yes, and I remember hitting it so many times that I was worried the batteries were gonna die.
How did it make you feel?
It made me feel a lot better, and I really enjoyed having it because anytime that I felt that was tough or just hard to deal with something, I could click the button and hear their voice, and it would give me hope.
You started therapy. You actually walked for the first time within that month. And once you got better and finally got to tier so you could get more therapy. How was the ride there?
Oh, that was the roughest ride I've ever been on. Just every little bump, I felt.
How was it once we got to tier?
It was fun.
Was it hard work?
It was the most extensive therapy I've ever been a part of. It was intense.
Do you have a schedule? Every hour of the day was classified for something.
I remember the first week I got there, they asked me what my overall goal was, and I told them my number one goal was to make it home and spend Christmas with my girls. And I asked them, do you think that's possible? And they said, we see no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. And then I got hit with another curveball.
Then you were kicking butt, even came leaps and bounds, and then we found out that you had developed an infection with brain. I had to go in and take the bone flap back off, but your bone had actually gotten infected, so they could not replace it and put it back on. You were so close, and it's like, what now?
It was a really big setback.
Yeah, it was. And then you didn't end up getting to be home for Christmas. You already went home for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas.
It was one thing to miss those holidays, but I did not want to miss Christmas. The hardest part was not being here and having to watch my kids open up presents on FaceTime.
You look good. Can you wave at me? Wave at me. Wave.
It was definitely tough getting birth therapy. My therapist, I love her to death, but man, she was hard. She she reminds me of Major Payne. You know, she had me walking upstairs, you know, making sure I'm good with that again. It was definitely a workout. It was a hard workout.
Put back more. Put back more. Very good.
I had some, what they call vestibular issues. So my eyes would go all crazy. Part of the deal with the vestibular issues was that once I got worked up so much that I would end up throwing up my breakfast.
You overcame that
Yeah.
once you got back to tier, and that from then on it was more physical. So you had a lot of muscle that deteriorated that you had to build back up, balance.
Come back up. Good job. Good.
Yeah, because part of my therapy was learning how to dress myself again in the morning. Now that I'm home, finally, my goals is to medically get cleared so I can be able to get back to work.
What are you doing?
Is that Daddy? Can you give a hug? So Daddy's home.
And to enjoy some holidays at home. It's made me realize that there are things that we take for granted that we shouldn't. Even as something as simple as Valentine's Day, as goofy as it may seem, it's one thing that plays a factor.
Tell her hi. Can you say it?
So what would you say to people that are looking at getting into writing or that are currently writing?
The one thing I ask is that you wear a helmet.